Okay, let's see. Well, hello everyone.
Hey Jeff.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Hey
pretty good.
Tom, how's it going?
Can you guys
Good.
hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, hi Tom. Hi
Good to see you
Mariana
guys.
and Nicholas. I see. Oh, Nicholas is muted. Hey Mariana, can you hear me? No, she's working on it. Okay.
And you guys can hear
Oh,
me okay,
Dave.
huh?
Hi David.
Hi.
Oh, wow, David, I
Hello.
haven't seen you in a long time, man.
Yeah.
Wow,
How's
cool.
everybody doing?
Hanging in there.
Hey, hanging in there.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I've been meaning to write about like how my situation is going,
Yeah.
at my school,
Yeah.
but it's it's actually been kind of depressing, so I kept putting it off. I mean, I'm still employed,
That's
uh,
good.
but I had to lay off all of our musicians.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Oh,
I mean,
geez,
complete,
really?
just across the board.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I
I
kept,
wow.
yeah.
I managed to keep them alive and paid until the summer, and I think I spent all the capital I had, in doing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But what happened, kind of a perfect storm. It invited like scrutiny from administration, and they started saying, "Well, you guys are asking for lab fees to support musicians too," and so they decided they didn't want to have any lab fees, and so there was so even though those never covered the whole deal, um, it was just one more reason. But the biggest problem is that I think at least half of my faculty are just fine with using what they call their own music.
Yep.
It's like, because it came down to me in a faculty meeting just saying, uh, the only way we're going to be able to keep musicians is if you say you can't teach without them. I mean, and what happened is that they just kind of they just didn't want to go that route, and they didn't want to deal with all the complications of sort of collaborating on Zoom with people, and all the echo and everything like that. Um, oh, by the way, while I'm here, uh, Mariana, I love your video. Your your
Yeah.
your prepared piano piece that you have. It's just absolutely fabulous. I showed it to my class because we were talking about the prepared piano and stuff like that. But what you did with the dancers and the camera work and the sound and everything, I mean, just it's just wonderful work.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very, very happy to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's the first time that I can join these meetings. I saw it half an hour ago and I was like, yes, I finally can join.
Yeah.
So happy to see your faces also to put you a face because I see the names in the emails.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mariana, I see. I think most of the folks, David, Tom, Owen, me, we know each other. Mariana, have you met any of these folks before, or would you like to introduce yourself and tell us where you're?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I recognize the names from the emails always.
Sure.
And yeah, well, yeah, Mariana, I'm from Spain actually, but I living in Sweden since 10 years ago. So I've been working playing for ballet mostly, but since 3 years ago I started to play for also for contemporary dance classes, and I'm working full time now in the Swedish National Ballet School. in Gothenburg. Gothenburg is in the west coast of Sweden. Yeah, and then, well, as you know, I'm doing also my own projects in the side, which are dance and music films. I did the first one 2016 called Ceres, and then I decided it was such a interesting process, and I really like to have a result with me that I can show to everyone. So then I decided to continue, and then I did the second one, which took a long time because the first one I made it very fast, but the second one is this kind of project that is, there are problems all the time. But sometimes it's like this. But it's done now, and I'm very happy. It's called Four, and now I'm sending to festivals and all of this, and it's really nice to see that people watch your work and your proposition. So thank you so much, David, for sharing also with your students. And yeah, now I'm preparing the third one because I want to do a trilogy. So that's the goal. It's a lot of work, but I love it. So yeah.
Mariana, I would recommend that you send it to the American Dance Festival, and if you need help with that, they have a regular dance film series at the American Dance Festival at Duke University.
I cannot hear you very well. Can you repeat?
I'm gonna switch. Yeah, let me switch.
Okay.
Okay, is this better?
I think so.
Okay. I would recommend that you
No, it's not.
It's
not.
worse.
It's worse.
Yeah, yeah, your audio is a little bit muffled. For some reason.
Okay, I'm gonna turn this thing off.
Maybe you can write in the chat. I don't know.
Oh, there you go, Tom. That's better.
Okay, I had to turn my Bluetooth off. It was so anyway, Mariana. I played at the American Dance Festival a couple of summers. I think some of you guys did too. David, have you played there? But anyway,
You're
they
muted,
have
David. You're muted.
Yeah, I haven't. I was asked to do it once or twice, but I just couldn't go across the country and leave my dogs and everything.
I know it took me 2.5 days to get there and got bed bugs and stuff. But anyway,
Great advertising.
that's another. Don't go to a Hotel 6 in Motel 6 in Lexington, Kentucky. That was a bad choice. But anyway, Mariana, there's a dance video series that the American Festival does at Duke University, and Jody, shoot, how do you pronounce her last name? Nimbacher. I can put you in contact with her. I'll leave my email on the chat, so you can connect with them. It's a great series. It's a really good series, and it's a good venue.
It's a dance festival, and inside of the dance festival, they have a dance film festival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they have a festival, and now they're running it. Of course, they're doing streaming. I'm not streaming. The series is on YouTube video,
Okay.
and it's pretty good. I think it's very good. So
When is it?
I'll send you my email. Excuse me.
When is it?
It's a summer.
Oh,
festival.
you'll have to check with Jody.
Okay.
Yeah, ADF is in the summer, but I don't know when the submission deadlines are.
It sounds very familiar. I think I have seen something.
Yeah.
There are a lot of dance film
Yeah.
festivals in the States. A lot. The problem is that they are expensive to submit. Normally you have to pay a lot, so it's always tricky with
That I didn't know.
like, okay, how much money I want to put, and you don't know if they are going to, even they don't select the film, so then you lose $40 or $50. So
Right.
Right.
but I will take a look. I sent my movie now to Utah Dance Film Festival.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
It was pretty
That's a good one.
But I decided, okay, let's do it because it looks like people are liking the movie. So I was like, okay, let's invest some money.
I tried to send it. There's another festival in Illinois that happens each fall, the Flatlands Dance Film Festival,
Yeah,
and
that
it's a
dance.
pretty
Yeah,
good one.
yeah.
I don't know
Yes,
if
I
you.
know.
Okay, I may have already sent that one to you. I only send that one because I go to it whenever I can.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great. Thanks for the introduction, Mariana,
You're welcome.
and welcome to. What time is it in? Are you in Sweden or Spain right now?
I'm in Sweden, and it's the same time as Spain and Sweden. It's 6 o'clock.
Oh, 6 p.m. Okay, that's not too bad.
It's
I
not
just got
too
done watching the French Open final, so I think it was about the same time in Paris right now.
Yeah, it's all Europe is the same time, but London is 1 hour less, and Canary
Oh,
Island is 1 hour less. It's the only.
oh,
But
interesting.
Italy, yeah, Italy, Greece, Germany, France, we have all the same hour.
Where are
Yeah,
you in Sweden?
In Gothenburg, in the Swedish coast,
What city? Oh, okay, nice.
Gothenburg is the city. The city is Gothenburg.
Gothenburg, yeah.
You're right. Okay. Yeah.
Is the second city in Sweden. The first one, I mean, the biggest is Stockholm, and the second one is Gothenburg.
Huh.
It's a very nice city. It's not so big, so it's a nice city. I like it.
Interesting. What is what is the public transit system like there? Is it bicycle centric or is it streetcars or how does that work?
It's
Bus.
well, I use public transport a
Yeah.
lot. There is trams, a lot of trams.
Okay.
They go very slow, but it's okay. Well, they're very slow. Sometimes takes the same time to go by bike than by tram,
Okay.
and
I
then
see.
some buses and trams. But the
Interesting.
city is all connected with trams, and of course people with cars, but not so much. I mean, well, depends. People from outside Gothenburg they can buy car, but inside of the city, it's a very how do you say friend environment city, or I don't know how to say. Like it's clean, it's green, and the air is
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Pedestrian friendly.
Hmm. Yeah.
Friendly to walk in and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Europe, Europe.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know so much about the States, but I hear about Los Angeles and things like this.
I was going to say David knows Southern California is
Yeah.
Owen's lived in Southern California as well. It's a
I'm
whole different
actually
thing.
I'm actually in exile. I
Oh
have
yeah?
yeah, I have a house in southern Humboldt County on the coast, and I've been there pretty much since March uh,
Yeah.
up here. And you know, I mean, I'm in the least the least populated coastal area probably in the whole Pacific Northwest. It's
Yeah.
really, and so it's been a good place to endure the you know all this business, and you know since my university is basically completely online, you need a helicopter to get into that campus. I mean, it's hard. Um, so I just said, you know, the heck with it. You know, wanted to get that. Of course, then we had some of the world, you know, the biggest fires ever. You know, close enough so that we had our cars packed for a few
Yeah.
days. You know, you just can't escape it in California this year. Um,
Yep.
yeah. So how's everybody else doing? Where Owen? Where are you? Tom? Where are you?
I'm in Jackson, Mississippi. So we're actually, weathering a hurricane or the remnants of a hurricane right now. It's been pretty tame here in Jackson. Some out around rain bands kind of went up through Alabama, and Louisiana got a direct hit. So, but it's just been a lot of wind. It's like 50 mile an hour gusts and a little bit of rain, but it hadn't been too bad. And I teach at Belhaven University, and yeah, that's Jackson's similarly a kind of a small town. Public transport is not so good, but yeah, a lot of cars. It's more like LA in that way. But anyhow, that's where I am.
So you are working there in Jackson?
I am. Yeah, my school went ahead and made the choice to meet, and then even as the numbers continue to go up, we were certain that it was going to be moved online, and about 2 weeks before classes started, the numbers started looking better, and we've been fully in person, students wearing masks, socially distanced in the space, no partnering. Um, and again, when I felt certain that the classes were going to be moved online, uh, realizing that they had just changed all the contracts to include the clause for dismissal for pandemics, I was expecting to, expecting to lose our musicians, as you've mentioned, David. So I really hate to hear that, but we dodged the bullet somehow, and we're still in person, and so far the cases are really low on campus, and they're pretty low in the state, but it's high per capita. It's mostly the rural areas outside of Jackson have been hit especially hard. Less access to healthcare, and you know, but yeah, we're doing okay in Jackson.
Mm. And you, David, where do you work?
I work at Loyola Marymount University, which is in LA, in Los Angeles. And yeah, before that, I was at UCLA forever. Um, what I'm trying to figure out is whether or not um, the situation that's been going on with my school has something to do with it being a private university rather than a public one. All the public universities, the biggest public university system in California, the Cal State University, they've already said that they're going to be online all the way until the summer. But in the case of mine, the private university, they can't make a decision. They keep stringing us along. We don't know what's going to happen yet in the winter, and I mean it's big business for them. The students pay something like $55,000 a year to go, and it's and so what they're trying to do is, and you'll probably, they're looking at their bottom line and what can we cut? What can we eliminate and still move forward? And unfortunately, dance accompaniment, it was one of those things that just it gets on the chopping block pretty quickly in this. In my situation now, along with like teaching music for dance and that kind of thing, I'm also doing music directing stuff. I'm providing music in asynchronous scenarios for different teachers basically for things that they can't find. Like I just did a whole thing of tendus and sevens, that kind of thing. Or somebody needs something with a lot of meter changes and that, so they'll give me a call and I'll whip something up for them. But my all that support that I'm doing is asynchronous right now.
So, well, David, your original question is you were saying you were curious whether it maybe had something to do with Loyal Marymount being private and public
Yeah,
schools being
yeah.
able to make longer term decisions or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I was thinking aloud about that, and as I was doing that, I was saying, well, yeah, but it is true that the Cal State University system has already gone completely online until the summer. But just in general, I'm just wondering whether or not the sort of the dance accompaniment situation, the funding, all that sort of stuff, has it been better in sort of public universities than it is in private ones? I don't know if I mean, I don't have the data.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So I don't know. It sounds like Owen, I mean, from what people have been reporting, just on our little listserv there, it sounds like it's really varied. I mean, uh, wildly. I mean, in Little Rock, Michael Heavner it sounds like the program is going away, like the dance program.
Right.
and which is baffling to me because when we were there, Owen, you and I were there in 2013, I think, for
Something like that.
ACDA,
Mhm.
and it was like this thriving program with a whole slate of tenured or tenure track faculty, and I mean what I and David. I don't know if his was a full time appointment, but it was a. I think he had a full time thing between dance and music. Doing musical theater. So I mean, it was like a healthy situation. And now 7 years later, I guess it's going away. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not in a university right now. I'm not. I don't know that I ever really see California anymore. I was commuting 400 miles every week from San Jose, which is where I live now, and that just got to be too much. So, as good of a job as that was, I left it back in January. They are. I don't know exactly what their situation is. I talk to my friends there sometime, but they're online right now. I don't know what the long term view is. But other friends at other universities, who teach in music and these kind of stuff, or I have another set of friends. Yeah, they're all in music. It's been really uncertain. There's just been so much uncertainty and hemming and hawing and different messaging coming out. It's been really stressful. My wife is lucky. She teaches at San Jose State University. So, David, you mentioned the Cal State system. Very early on, like the second week of March or the third week of March or something, they said we're going to be online, and then just recently they said for the spring we're going to be online, and it's I think the financial situation is different there. They have a lot of students, a lot of campuses. The admission standards, they admit a lot of students, so I think they have and I know that my wife has mentioned that at least on her campus, there's been a big initiative from before coronavirus even happened to really increase their online teaching offering. So it was almost kind of an opportunity to actually fast track that whole effort. And I think that's a unique situation.
I, all this sort of stuff, and it just seems like this is a point at which it may be a sort of a pivot point for sort of a robust music, for dance sort of programs in these in universities. I think that a lot of the schools have taken a big hit, and like this the situation in mine where honestly, a lot of the faculty just could take live accompaniment or leave it, which is, that was not something that was even thinkable 20 years ago, 30 years ago when I started working. It was such a mainstay, but now they all have, they've got their Spotify, and they've got all their resources, and that kind of thing. And I don't know. I don't know what I would tell somebody who is like 25 and trying to enter this field now, at least in the U.S.
Well, David, I echo kind of what you were talking about in terms of kind of the feeling of being strung along and the whole, kind of dollar bottom line being a lot of what's driving those decisions. And again, had we gone online, I'm pretty certain that we wouldn't have the accompanists that we have been able to employ doing it live. But I think one thing it's kind of, I mean, I hope it's not an aberration, but the program at Belhaven, I feel like one of the things, because some of these students are going to churches where their live music is still happening, this is kind of part of that culture that I think it's some ways it's kind of an easier sell that live music is so much better and preferable. And so that's something to maybe kind of like dig down on and kind of like look at some differences there, just from the way live music is perceived. There are plenty of other ways that people can enjoy live music, but just as a kind of a subset, seems like the faculty and the students just really, really value it. And it's like to see how eager and enthusiastic everyone has been to be in a space is just kind of the reminder that, like, that human element, no matter how far, there are going to be people who maybe are kind of like you said, take it or leave it. But I think the sell is really that, once again, when you're talking about art and the live live art is a different thing and is valuable and valid. And there's plenty of wonderful things that we can adjust programs and do more with technology. And some of that's good and necessary and probably was going to happen anyway. But it's just really, I think there's still a way to sell that. It's just you have to get real buy-in from the faculty and students to where they kind of demand it, especially at a private school where it is driven that way. If the students are clamoring for it, they're going to want to provide the best experience for them.
The other part of the sort of perfect storm of stuff that I'm seeing going on, and it's funny because it happened at the school that I left, UCLA, and now it's happening here, is basically a whole movement towards a kind of more politicized environment in which the students are now lobbying for things like they're actually talking about decolonizing dance, whatever that really means. But there's even talk about maybe eliminating the ballet as a requirement. They want to fully integrate. They want to elevate hip hop to the same level as modern and ballet and that kind of thing. I know, Manjuan, you're shaking your head. I'm in the same place, and I'm just saying, because I've seen this. I saw this happen at UCLA, where by the time I checked out of there, the quality of dance had gone down. 14 out of 16 senior dances were text based, and all with the same and it's all preaching to the choir kinds of subjects, which is unfortunate. I mean, even though I share a lot of progressive political persuasions, I don't think that dance and the arts need to become owned by them. And so that's kind of the other part of it too. Like whoever takes my job when I leave, I don't know if they're going to be a DJ, or I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it'll be, and I don't know where we're going to find somebody who can play ballet and play modern and accompany an African class and and do hip hop stuff and whatever. And so it's going to get spread out in a way where I'm just not sure what's happening with the art form.
Yeah. So, boy, that's a really big that's a really big question. And David, well, I want to come back to that, but I actually wanted to see if I could ask Mariana about one topic back before we get into the aesthetics and to the future of the art form. But just from a practical standpoint, Mariana, you noticed that we've been, doing a lot of hand wringing and there's some anxiety about the future of and the present state of our role. But I wonder what your observations are in Europe and whatever parts of Europe that you're most familiar with. I mean, I have my perceptions, and I got to go to the Rome conference that Cristiano puts on a couple years ago, and so I got to speak with some folks and get a little bit of a sense. But I wonder what your sense is for these kind of things.
Yeah,
Are
well,
musicians? Yeah,
I'm
go on.
worried because I see what is going on in the world. In Sweden, it's like we are in a bubble, and it's so nice. In Sweden, they never close schools during the
Yeah.
pandemic. They only close schools from students from 15 years old. But so I'm working in a school, they are from 10 to 15. So we have been working all the time as normal. I mean, we're disinfecting things and blah, blah. And we had a performance in June, like the whole school was involved in the performance and it was canceled because the theaters were closed. So this is the only difficult thing that is happening right now in Sweden is like the theaters are closed or very limited. and they have this thing with 500 people, or I don't know how many people, which is stupid because you have small theaters and then you have the opera. So the artists working in theaters, singers, dancers are very, very disappointed with Sweden. But because I'm working in the school, it feels like nothing has happened. So yeah, so that's our feeling. There is, people in Sweden, we are not using mask in the streets, never. So it's really like it feels like the life is kind of the same here. Of course, there are some people really affected, but well, it's a good country, good economy, so it's pretty calm here. But of course, I'm in contact with people in Spain, and yeah, they have been at home all the time, and they have been also like handling how to play classes online and all of this. So yeah, now in Spain everything is open again, but now they are closing again because the cases are growing, and it's this
Right.
hysteria. I don't know, because I'm living in Sweden, it feels like it's hysteria in the world. Of course, there's a big problem, but it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, when I see these dance classes with the students with the mask and the pianist alone in the corner with the mask, it's like, this is no sense. Put the mask when you are in a room, when you are in the public transport, or when you are close to people. But when you are all dancers, I don't know how many people with breathing problems are going to be in a few months. I don't know.
So where you are, the past few months haven't, well, the theater closures and everything, but it feels normal now. You know,
So it's
he,
really nice to be here. Actually, we are all of us. We are saying like, thanks God that we are in Sweden.
interesting, interesting. Yeah, because it's having really, I mean, yeah, it's having a lot of effect for
Yeah.
folks here.
And also, what I'm thinking like now you are saying that some universities decided to close until next summer. So it's like,
Well, they're doing online
yeah,
teaching
well, yeah,
rather
sorry,
than in person.
yeah, I mean, moving everything online, but it's like we need to live with the virus, and it's a virus that don't kill so many people. I mean, kill some people, and some people get very sick. But I don't know. People have I don't know. Well, this is the Swedish philosophy. Like, we have to
Yeah,
get,
sure.
and then we cannot like close everything and stay at home all the time. That's sick. Like to live with fear all the time is I don't know how much.
Maybe,
But
maybe,
the
yeah.
situation in Spain is different than Sweden, right? I mean,
Yeah,
they were hit really hard. Sweden was hit. I mean,
yeah,
Spain was hit really hard.
yeah. But it's for example, Norway and Finland, which are very similar countries with Sweden. I mean, same kind of population, of lifestyle, of everything. They are very restricted also. It's just Sweden that is doing things in different ways. And in Spain, they are counting the cases, even if you are negative, even if you are positive and you are healthy, they are counting the cases. So I've been there now 1 month in summer, and you couldn't see the news because everything was about new cases, new cases, new cases. I'm like, yeah, my mom was a new case, but she was okay, and my brother, but they were not sick. So if you are if you
Yeah.
are using the mask and being careful with your contact, but with dance and music and the dance classes like being canceled, I'm like, why? Why? The musicians are in the corner, the
Well,
dancers
in
are.
this country,
I was going to say
in this
before we
country,
shut
I think.
down.
Go on, David. Go on.
Oh, I was before we shut down. I'd actually made proposals to put plexiglass up around around the pianos, that kind of thing, because they were already doing the thing of taping down the studios with 8 by 8 squares, and but the more research you get, that whole sort of aerosolization thing, it doesn't really contain itself.
That's the thing. The virus can go any way, and you touch all the time things,
Yeah.
and
So
your hands
then,
are dirty all the time. So it's like, what are you going to do to
yeah,
live with mask, with fear, with the scare? For me, it's crazy what is going
yeah.
in the world right now.
then they were talking about just creating outdoor spaces. But that even wasn't going to work for our musicians because we couldn't move our pianos out there.
Right.
And because of the location in campus, we couldn't have percussion because people would complain about the noise. So it just, it's just kind of like we're just waiting until, you know, until the environment seems to be safe. And of course, LA, it spiked in the summer right around the time where they were making all their decisions. But every time I read about all these schools that do reconvene, then all of a sudden there's a spike in student cases, and
Yeah.
I think they're all looking at that very carefully too.
Yeah, I know at the University of Illinois, John Tenges wasn't able to join us this morning, but they have some outdoor spaces, at least I think two outdoor spaces that are kind of designated. John's been shuffling sound systems around, and he's a big part of his role this semester has been loading in sound systems, and drummers are playing on electronic instruments, and carrying drums out there and stuff, and they've got this whole kind of system of wheeling things out from the studios, and they've been able to make that solution work, I think, because there's not a lot of classes on campus, so the noise isn't as big of an issue. But it's just suffice it to say, everywhere is finding different solutions. That's one of the things about, Mariana, I think one of the things that's I'm thinking about, one of the ways that the experience in the U.S. now is unique, is that we're a huge country, and every locality and every university is finding a different way through this situation, and our situations are changing. I mean, right now New York is like the place to be because it's safe. Well, it was absolutely a death zone back in April, and now Wisconsin is almost out of hospital beds, and Wisconsin was fancy free through the summer, and it's so it's we're the U.S. is kind of rudderless right now in a lot of ways, without getting into the specifics of my political views. But I think the coronavirus is an illustration of how we're just kind of on our own, which it may not be a bad thing necessarily, because the making the decisions independently in different universities and different communities, because it's multifaceted and it's affecting people differently everywhere. David, your comment about starting to touch on the way that aesthetics and culture and politics are really becoming at the forefront of, you were mentioning specifically at UCLA, I think. Is that we were, and the same thing was true of my experience at UCR, at University of California, Riverside, and I think it's within the context of this group, the thinking I'm always trying to do is what are we for? Who are we serving? The group kind of, I think, started with the main support. The main thrust was supporting a smaller group of people who were entering or trying to get tenure track positions going as dance music directors and dance departments. And over the past 5 years, I'm thinking there's been, like, I don't know that I've seen any openings or any shifts in positions like that. And in the past 10 years since I've been a dance musician, I don't know. I think the same thing might be true. I don't know that I've ever seen a recruitment for a tenure track. That's not true. I think maybe I've seen one, two, something like that. So I mean, we're talking about a really, really, really small field. It's a small, small field, and your comment about maybe getting rid of ballet as a core requirement. Well, so or maybe DJs being more common in class than anything. So I guess what that all says to me is there's a changing landscape. There's a changing set of needs. Oh yeah, not to mention faculty who are perfectly or prefer or perfectly happy with using fixed media, using recordings and things to teach your classes. You know, does that mean that the gig is up? You know what I mean? Does that mean that the mission that's gone, that we lost it, that we lost the fight? And I don't know. I don't know that I'm curious what people have to say about that, but I also just think, well, we have almost 100 registered members in the guild. Certainly, a huge majority of them are not tenure track or tenured faculty in universities. And how do we think about who we serve and how we serve them going forward? Because I think, and I've done a lot of hand wringing about how we kind of influence the landscape of demand for musicians in dance class and this kind of thing. And I don't want to necessarily say I'm a fatalist about it, but what I learned from my own experience at UCR and from my conversations with all of you is that ultimately, and I think it's got to come from the faculty. And I think that's the reason why Bill Moulton and all the founders at the beginning, I think really pushed for that. It's that no, the musicians need to be in faculty positions so that they can be, in a sense, driving the demand or creating and ensuring the demand. But anyway, I guess that's just a long way of me saying maybe what our goal is and what we're trying to do in the future shifts a little bit, and maybe we try to focus on finding ways to serve people in different ways, other than just supporting tenure track faculty careers.
I agree with that. I mean, I just think that from when I started doing this in the late '70s, that what I'm seeing now is almost unrecognizable from what it was when I began. The way that the classes worked, what the expectations of teachers were. I mean, I'm trying to remember the last time that I was asked to do something that shifted meters, in a class where when I started, I mean, it was like I used to have to etch on the dust on the piano like the numbers, when I was working with people like Bill T. Jones or, whatever, because I mean, it was like a 7 and a 9 and then 2 4s and then this and, I'm just trying to remember the numbers. And now half of our classes, the teachers that even use the accompanists that I find for like modern things, they want ambience more than anything. I've been lucky enough to avoid playing for most of all the classes because I have too many other things to do. But I would get very, very impatient with having to do that, and so I do think that it would be unfortunate for the guild to just become a thing that's about just helping people with their tenure and all that. I mean, although that has been an important part of getting our field sort of what it is. But I do think there needs to be a sense of because ultimately we are sort of here because we are in some way supporting the art form of dance, right? And so there needs to be some sort of thought about where dance is going and how music fits into that, because it is a different scenario now. You know, when dance accompaniment started, we didn't have digital audio, we didn't have iPhones, we didn't have all these files that everybody had, we didn't have all these services that supply, you know, music. So, and I mean, all those functions have largely been taken up by digital media. Um, so, you know, and I'm also finding it's digging into collaboration too. It's just easier than it's easier than it used to be for choreographers to not collaborate. I mean, I owe my whole career to collaboration. I mean, I that was what I did. That's what I love to do, and I embrace it. But what I find is that now it's sort of a last resort for because they've got so much stuff. They've got so much stuff, and it's just easier. Um, so where do you know? I would love to hear what Manjanan thinks about all this because he philosophizes a lot on where music and dance is going. What are your thoughts?
You know, so um, I don't play for classes. I haven't for a while. I haven't composed for a while, but I've been doing well. I've been finishing up my research, which I didn't think would take me 10 plus years, which it finally did. And I spent a couple of years actually cleaning things up to make sure that some of the things I had discovered in my research was actually true, because it was completely off the fundamental thinking of how we thought of music and dance for years. Um, I think the thing that pushed me to start this was I had moved from Brockport to Minneapolis. And within the first few years, I realized that I went from a very robust and a thought-provoking department in Brockport to a very small one that was part of the theater department, and where the faculty were similar age to what the Brockport faculty were at that time, 60s, and they were about to retire. And what happened in the first few years was they brought in a whole bunch of younger faculty who were just retiring from dance companies. And by this time, you know, I was 20 plus years into my career, and I had more questions about this relationship of dance and music than I had answers to. And now that I was in a different environment, I could see the disparities, the disconnects that was happening. I knew all the work my colleagues and all the founders of IGMD had done for years. I knew what Bill had done, you know, David, Rob, and Catherine, and all these people written. I knew all that wealth of information existed, but I also knew that outside of IGMD, there was a whole complete disconnect to what was the reality of this relationship. And so, you know, the 10 years, I thought it was just a couple of years, but out of those 10 years came, you know, my open source dance methodology, DRE, a bunch of stuff came out of it that I've implemented. And interestingly, the last few months, you know, I am on, so the dance history scholars, or the DHS, Dance History Scholars, are in accord. Congress on Research in Dance and Society for Dance History Scholars merged to become DHS. So they formed a music and dance working group. And I am on that working group. And the interesting concept here is, obviously, again, it is musicians who are interested in dance who have zero knowledge compared to the knowledge that Rob and David and Catherine and Bill and, you know, Tom and everybody else who come before us have had. Their interest is more on their research, situational. So that's what's going on there. And I got invited, and I'm on it, and I spent the last year and a half listening to getting my feel of it while I was finishing up my research on this. Then I'm on the American Musicological Society's Dance and Music Work Group, another similar And what's fundamental is this novelty that this dance and music thing is, and this whole hoopla about it, and what are we going to do? And that is the underlying theme that these conversations are happening. And the co-chair of American Musicological Society, she is out of Austria. And the chair of the music working group for SDHS is out of Cleveland, but they're all scattered all over the place. So at the same time, I finished my research and I got invited for an interview for a dance festival on technology and music on my perspectives on what I thought of 21st century directions of multidisciplinary dance identity. And when I responded to my interview, the questions that I've gotten was that in my research, I found out that the people who have continued this whole understanding of this relationship were actually, if I was to compare them with the ritualistic musicians from my part of the world, are the dance companies. And I have brought this up in some of my writings, is that dance musicians, all of us, we engage with dance at the movement vocabulary level. And that is our fundamental connection to dance. And our connection to dance isn't only during performance, only during collaborations. We now have a symbiotic relationship with dance. We learn from it and we put back into it more than just music. And if you trace it back to, go all the way back to Louis Horst, Lou Harrison, John Cage, they were all companies. They all started their careers as companies. They were down in the trenches, and their understanding of dance came from that. And only in the last couple of years was I able to answer the personal question that I had is, why was I first drawn so much to modern dance and Western music when none of my people were drawn to working in it? And then I began to realize that my earliest memory of seeing rituals, of actually Hindu rituals of dancers, being strapped on, reaching trance, and to see those musicians. And then I watched all our colleagues at every conference I've been to the last maybe 8 years. I haven't, if you noticed, I never interacted, I never played, I watched. I watched the improv sessions, I watched all of you playing, and I realized it's not Philip Glass who gets commissioned to compose for ABT, and there's an amazing work that goes up on stage, which is fabulous. But that fundamental connection, that symbiosis that exists, that happens within us, within dance musicians, who we interact with music at the fundamental level of movement vocabulary and sound and music. And movement vocabulary analysis, we recognize patterns, we recognize directions, we can see things that a normal collaboration musician can't. And so my research pointed to this whole 100 years of work by all these people that has a lineage from Louis Horst to Lou Harrison to John Cage to Pierre Gilbert to Lucia Douglas. It's harder than my last name. Lucia, yeah. Harder than my last name. Her to Robert Ellis Dunn and Judson choreographers. I mean, all of them, even Catherine Tech, Bill Moulton. I realized the bond here is, we are interlocutors. We take the message and we pass it on. But nobody knows about it. Everybody's in the Western society, stage performances, according to the stage, is being in so much prominence. And so much has been given to collaborations. One of the examples that I brought up in this conversation is that Reinhold Messner is an amazing mountain climber. He has climbed Mount Everest like 30 times. I suck at climbing Mount Everest because I never climbed it, right? But if I climb Mount Everest, I'll have a lot more to tell you at the post-performance discussion about my negotiations of climbing Mount Everest. Reinhold Messner is a walk in the park. And when I look at all of you, collaborations for you is a walk in the park. This is what dance musicians do. We exist in symbiosis with movement. But you take, David, throw me a musician from LA that you know of who's pretty popular, who doesn't know anything about dance. just any musician. Let's say,
You mean like a dance musician who doesn't know?
no, just a well-known musician. Let's take Leland Sklar, bassist for, you guys know Leland Sklar? No,
Yeah, Lee
yeah,
Sklar, sure.
Lee Sklar, bassist, right, bassist for Phil Collins and all those people. Throw him into a collaboration. He'll have a lot to talk about it. And most of it is logistical because his creative talent is strong. He can compose for dance. But the collaboration itself, mostly a logistical issue of how he got around to working with dance. What are the obstacles he faced? So if you really look at a collaboration for musicians who are not familiar with dance, it's a spectacle. I mean, people talk about, oh my good God, you know, and I realized in this conversation that I had for this dance festival that I write about, that there's not a single composition example I use, but what I use is the lineage from Louis Horst, almost to all of us. And the fact that they were listening to me talk about my views on technology on dance and my views on sound and dance, and they were going, so dance is really inherently a multidisciplinary art form. I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. And if the 20th century is about collaborations, 20 years into this century, it's about symbiosis. It's about give and take. We all of us in every sense, for example, John Tender's doing Late is taking from dance and going above beyond himself to give something back to dance. Horsch did that, Cage did that, Robert Ellis Dunn did that. So I've started this sort of communication with a couple of organizations who are beginning to listen to my perspectives. And this took me 10 years to dig under all the rocks and stones and make sure that I wasn't just talking out of the blue. But I began to really, and I gained a lot of even more appreciation for people like Bell and Catherine and Rob and David and all those people who have come before me about, what they did at the height of the 80s and 90s, a few years after postmodern dance and again another dance environment that actually took music and dance and said, what the fuck, right? That was the 70s and 80s we went through, a previous revolution. So here we are again, I look at this as a time for me, in what I'm doing now in my conversations with the different organizations and in being asked to talk about my views in music and dance and technology, is to bring attention to the lineage from Horst to Harrison to Cage to Pierre Gilbert to all these people. And I have a diagram that I've drawn. I mean, these are things that I haven't really put out there yet. I mean, Jeff has seen it, Tom has seen some of it. But the reception I'm getting is great because I'm showing dance. You guys are not just dancers. You guys are not just movers, but you have provided an environment for people like us to become greater than we could ever imagined ourselves to become. And I have 100 years worth of history, to show that. Yeah. So that's pretty much, so I mean, the concerns that I'm hearing from all of you is that for me, it is the message. For me, it is promoting the message of who we are and who we have been, and how more value we can add to this conversation as opposed to bringing in Lee Sklar and saying, hey, he's going to compose. Yes, he's going to bring in money. He's going to sell tickets. Prince will sell tickets. Well, he's dead. But, if he hadn't collaborated, I mean, he'll sell tickets. But those I call them microcycles of a limited effect on dance. Whereas people like Lou Harrison, John Cage have macro cycles of effects that linger into decades and decades of what they put back in. And I know that Rob has done work. I mean, I was talking to Rob and telling him, Rob, his Primal Alexander work that he's doing, which is specifically from movement sound-based one. I'm like, Rob, that comes from the lineage. It's not just that you decided to take in a Primal Alexander. And for me, it comes from what we can give back to dance. So things like that, like I used Warshaw's example as well as Tengis's example in my interview about Warshaw coming up with lamps and things like that. So this is showing that besides being a company, besides being collaborators, that we have given back to dance in more ways than just music accompaniment.
Hmm.
And that's where, that's what I'm doing now. I put myself out there, but, it's not any different than coming off the boat, 35 years ago in New York City and going, what the fuck, from Sri Lanka. So for me, this is going out into the wilderness is nothing new. But this is what I'm doing now. But for me, this is an opportunity. And the more I hear from all of you, I take it back. And, I have asked you questions and you guys have written to me and I talk about all of you guys wherever I can. But I look at COVID as an opportunity to speak more. And I've gotten the chance to speak more, which I'm excited about. And when I talk about us. I talk about dance musicians. I talk about those who are ritual musicians, who work in the ritualistic relationship of music and dance. Just a brief. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Manju. Two things. I think I have gotten to look at Manju's materials and some of the products from his research, and read his really interesting interview that he did with Kathleen Kelly from the Proteo Media, and I highly recommend it if you can check that out. But I think we have also discussed doing a session, kind of like we did with Rob earlier in the summer. We did the primal Alexander technique. I want to bring Manju back to present the results of his research in a special session, and we'll plan to do that either this fall or maybe in the winter time. If anyone wants to jump in and comment in response to what Manju had to say, I give just a couple minutes to do that. And then I want to move on. We've been here about an hour, and I want to move on to cover some of the agenda items that actually Manju kind of springboarded into some of the things that I want to cover. But if anyone wants to add anything, or before we go on to that.
Just want to say, while you were talking, you made me think about what it is that how I sort of developed as a musician. I view it as almost inseparable from my experience with dance, and I most certainly I'm quite certain I learned more actually just interacting with dance and being in that environment than I ever did studying music in school. I mean, it's not even close. And a lot of it also was about problem solving.
Right.
And you just have to figure out, you have to just go, this is in front of me now, and this is what I'm doing, and you learn, through improvisation and through the thing that is hardest to explain, the sensibility that one develops in that environment, which is why I can look at a dance and score it 4 different ways. With that, and I can't completely explain why, but I just do it. It's that kind of thing. It's because the experience of having just been there. It's the experience of having climbed Everest a bunch of times, right?
Exactly. I mean, Rob, that's it. I mean, you've done the ritual. That's pretty much it. You've gone through the steps of the ritual. Yeah, but unfortunately, I think I was telling Jeff this, having grown up in a different culture, it made it easy for me to break down hierarchies that are established in the West. For example, a composer is at the peak of the pyramid in the West. If you're a composer, you're God, and then everyone's trickle-down theory. For me, anyone can compose. There are a shitload of composers. I mean, you can be brought into a choreography and you can compose for a work, and yes, and you do serve a purpose. Prince, if he was alive, could have composed for ABT, and they would have had a sold-out seasons. Yes, it pumps money back into dance, helps all of us. But if you want to really talk about the relationship, the evolution of this relationship to where we go from collaboration in 20th century to symbiosis where we are now, the steps of the rituals that have happened, yeah, somebody's got to break that hierarchy. And sure enough, you've got to bring the foreigner in from outside who says, hey, what the hell, you know? You can't just go about constantly giving, top of the pyramid going when they have no clue what's going on. And part of the time when you hear it's like me climbing Mount Everest, it's like, oh my God, it took me 3 hours to climb 500 feet. And Reinhold Messner going, yeah. So that's what we are now. So Rob, yeah, exactly.
So, but so Manju, well, David points out that well, you're both talking about breaking down of hierarchies. David's talking about one way of breaking a hierarchy is that you have people bringing in folks bringing in different forms. Okay, so hip hop and West African dance, and where I was Native American dance and voguing, and so you have things that are social dance and dances from cultures other than Western cultures or other than European influenced cultures. So that's one way of breaking down hierarchy. And in a sense, you're talking about that the symbiosis is a way of another way of breaking down the hierarchy. Well, I'm wondering about where do in the strictly pragmatic realm, how do those two things relate? Because David, posited, the scenario where what we have, what a lot of us in the guild have thought of as the role and functions of a dance musician being, not in demand, so that's a problem. From a purely practical standpoint of people having jobs, as well as just the aesthetic realities. But so I guess I'm not exactly sure what I'm going for here, except to say, do we? What is the project for the field of dance, music and dance? Is it we conceive of a whole new way of being? And I have to say, from my David, my background is that I'm a trained musician in Western music school, etc. But I have a feeling my experience was probably really different than yours. Whereas I came in understanding that my role may be as much as like a technical advisor one day, or like a sound designer. I mean, I was in grad school for sound design when I got involved as a dance musician, maybe ironically. So in a sense, for me, the role has always been highly technological, and has really always relied on my technical skills as much as my musical skills, or maybe not as much as, but in addition to my musical skills, and musical, as far as playing music for dance classes and then collaborating and new choreographies, composing music. So there's another element, but also this sort of like other kind of I don't know, this other element that was sort of symbiotic. I mean, like what Manju's talking about, where I would come into the studio and not know whether I would be making music that day or moving with the dance folks, or asked to lead a listening session, or like a guided listening, or to do a warm up, like a movement warm up that was based in music making or listening based. I mean, so. I don't know. I don't know if the difference in, and like I said, this was around 2010 when I first got involved with music and dance.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, what I would just sort of say, I mean, I completely had learned how to adapt, in the process of doing what, when I started, you know, my relationship was just, it was about writing music on, paper for musicians to play, and it was about me playing, the keyboard,
Yeah.
and uh, and now I'm more involved in technology probably on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
than I am, with sort of pitches and rhythms, or whatever. I mean, it just the way that's evolved, and we're all now, sort of technologists. We, especially now that we're all working online as we are. So, I mean, we already have evolved, but I
Yeah.
think that the question of, sort of where do we see our, the role of this going, um, is one that, I think could take quite a lot of time and discussion,
Yeah.
as an open-ended, sort of thing to posit, on the, the listserv or something like that. Where do you see the role of your role as a musician in dance, and the role of music in the art of dance, going? I'm not wording it very well, but it's just very interesting to see what that's about, and maybe some of that information, could be helpful. I think I mean, and some people have done fantastic jobs of sort of taking a look at where we've come from,
Yeah.
what's happened over the last 50, 100 years, how we got to this point. But I mean, even like my dance program, I mean, every week we sit down for an hour and a half, and the discussion is, where are we going?
Yeah.
Whereas they're trying to figure out where dance is going.
Right.
um, and because it is changing, and the students, at least that we have, maybe it's because we're in a big industry, area where there's a lot of commercial dance and film
Hmm.
and recording industry or whatever, but they are not. They're telling us that they're not interested in the old paradigms,
Yeah.
um, and so, and then I go, well. Uh, I mean, it. What is that? I mean, the next person that has my job, because I don't really have to do this for very much longer. But is their job going to be teaching them how to create beats, for, like, for their, to be their own, their own, uh, uh, composer, or create, is it going to be more technologically based? Are
Hmm.
they going to still, are they still going to be improvising musicians in modern classes? Are we, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
There's a
don't
lot
want to
there, and
talk
what's that?
because I don't want to talk because if I start talking, I won't stop. So
All
just
right. Well, Manju, we're going to have a session, Manju, where you'll get to do a whole lot of talking in the next few months.
yeah.
And I do want to move towards some of the business end of wrapping things, wrapping all of what we whoops, into into some of the business matters of going forward. But I will say that I think, David, the orientation towards thinking where we want to go, what we want to be doing is is apt, and the orientation we really have to have. And towards that end, oh, actually, before we go on, I just want to ask you, Tom, are you outside in Minnesota right now? This looks beautiful wherever you are.
Yeah, the leaves are changing, and Maju and I are experiencing living in another world right now. It's the colors are just awesome here in Minnesota. The maples and the birches and all the trees are just, it's gorgeous. So
Excellent.
I want to spend as much time outside as I can because it's this is my backyard. So
Nice.
anyway, I just wanted to say, Manju, thanks a lot. Um, I, see, I got into dance because I wanted to write music for dance. And I had the incredible experience of dancing to music that um, John Coleman played. I don't know if you guys know John Coleman or not, but he was a dance musician who worked in New York City. And uh, he was Mahanya Holmes' dance musician for a long time. And that's when I danced to his music was down in Colorado. And one of the things that happened as a result of that combination of working with someone like Hanya Holm to music by John Coleman is that it took me into another world, um, and uh, it was because of the combination of music and dance that I was able to access the unseen world. Um, I've had the amazing experience of being a dance musician for powwows. I sat on ceremonial drums here in Minnesota with a drum group for a couple of years, and just recently had a drum group and played with them actually for a dedication ceremony here in South Minneapolis right after George Floyd thing happened. And what I learned from the Indians is that uh, music and dance, because when I was sitting on the powwow drum with my native friends and singing the songs, trying to sing the songs, and playing the drum for sometimes 3 days in a row, is that what music and dance becomes is a vehicle for entering the unseen world. And um, and I think that's what our role is as dance musicians, is to be agents for accessing the unseen world. Now I'm talking about spiritual stuff here, which they don't like to talk about in universities, I understand. And So what I see, the reason I brought that up is because it, this whole COVID thing has put me in the backyard, spending a lot of time by myself and reflecting on the work that I have done in the past as an artist, musician.
Oh,
Oh,
did we lose you, Tom? We might have lost Tom. I'll I'll message him. Okay, I messaged him. Oh, you might have to head back to the Wi-Fi.
Am I back?
You're back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I don't mean to go off on something, but what Manju is talking about is, in such an inspirational way, is that I see the role that we have taken on as dance musicians as being sort of medicine men and women, and that the work that I've done for years with dance musicians, primarily young dancers, high school dancers, is that we take them to a place that's transformative, and that's what I see when I'm sitting on the drum with the native dance musicians. And so I think the sort of academic environment that dance has been put in, I don't know if you heard or not, but the University of Minnesota has eliminated a whole raft of uh, athletic programs. They're just dumping them. Um,
Well,
yeah, everything from tennis to indoor. What was it? Something. Anyway, there's a whole raft of programs that they're just eliminating. Um, and I think just the nature of what we do in terms of collaboration and being an agent for accessing this unseen world that I talk about. Because it, anyway, I just think I think I need to anyway rethink my role in terms of what it means to be a dance musician. Uh, anyway, that's kind of what I've been reflecting on in terms of, you know, because I am concerned about you guys that are still working. I'm not, I'm retired now. And um, uh, it worries me, Jeff. You know, it does. It worries
Hmm.
me a little bit, you know, because I met so many. And I mean, you talk about somebody who's transformational. I just got an email from Kathy Tech, who turned me on to a woman who's doing a PhD dissertation on the life of Marjorie DeLewis,
Hmm.
who ended up being a good friend of mine and played for years up at Sarah Lawrence for Viola Farber. And I actually sat in a coffee shop with the two of them. Now that was a trip. Um, but she's doing a dissertation on Marge DeLewis, and I took a video of Marge playing the final um, session at the conference at Tucson.
Yes, you
Suzanne
can see that
Noss
on
put
our
it
YouTube.
together, and it's on YouTube.
Yep.
Um, and if you listen to her play, it's spiritual. She's playing a Negro spiritual that comes out of the churches, you know. And geez, I love that woman. Oh my God, she was unbelievable, and she took me to places um, that I didn't know existed through her music, you know. And anyway, so this people like Bob Moulton were for me anyway, agents. Uh, uh, and just to let you guys know, there is, and I don't know, I haven't been able to connect with Suzanne about this, but there is, I videotaped an interview that Bill Moulton did with Marjorie DeLewis um, at Tucson, that session that we were at the university there. And it's somewhere in our archives, Jeff. I don't know if Suzanne has those or what.
I think
But
she does.
if you get a chance, and if we can get that put on the Guild site, it is I think, a monumental interview that Bill did. He was doing something for NYU. Wasn't he doing a radio program or a podcast or something? Does anybody remember that?
I don't know.
But anyway, it is, as far as I know, it's archived at the university. So anyway, you
Okay.
guys, I just, you know, I want you to know that I need you to keep doing your work because it's an agent for change and taking people to places that are um, um, transformational, you know, and whatever that's going to take, you know, in terms of our changing role.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tom, appreciate your sharing the your experiences, and I think it kind of, you know, I haven't had those exact experiences, but I would agree with you. And honestly, yeah, yeah, I would agree with you, and I think those who are yeah, it's my experience too. I'll just say that I've had a very, you know, I haven't had those specific experiences, but there's definitely accessing something deeper and essential to to being human, and so there's a million reasons why I love it, but that's a big one of them. And you know, I'd have to say that just personally, you're talking about kind of having to explore and discover anew what this being a dance musician is for you right now and going forward. And I'm kind of going through the same thing because I'm not it's not my job right now. And I had hoped to make it a little bit more of my job last spring, and pick up some collaborations and some classes and things like that. But for the time being, I think my way of contributing is going to be in a different way. And great. So I think you brought up, you kind of some good inspiration there for us going forward. And I'm trying to find the window here for my agenda. Let me see here. No, okay. Did I close it? I don't know.
I just want
Yeah,
to say,
go ahead.
I don't want to be impolite, but I have a 10:30 appointment, so I'm going to have
Great.
to, I'm going to just have to drift off really
To
quick.
bail out.
It's been great seeing everybody.
Right. Yes. Thank you. Thanks for stopping by, David. And from here on out, it's really, I'm just going to go over the rest of the agenda of what
Thanks,
we're going to be
David.
trying to get done the rest of the year. So,
Thanks, David. Can I come stay with you?
It's really gorgeous here, I
Yeah,
gotta say.
yeah.
All right, I'm in a place called
right.
Shelter Cove, California. Look it up on a map.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right up the
All right.
coast.
Yeah. All right.
I'm
Take
in San
care.
Jose. All right. Bye, David. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Okay. So just as a heads up, I'll be announcing this stuff on the listserv. But we will, so the end of my term, the end of my second term as president is coming up. We have 2-year terms in the guild, and mine has stretched to be a 4-year term. And I really have enjoyed serving in the role, and I think we've done some nice things. But I really think that it's going to be time to have someone else heading up our effort, and I'm excited about being able to kind of focus on some other projects and see how I can support whoever our new leadership is. We in our bylaws we have it set up where our president and vice president are elected, and we have also typically a secretary, and we also need a treasurer. So I'm right now working on trying to recruit some folks who would be interested in serving as a treasurer, because we really need to have someone who manages financial transactions and also keeps track of the bank account and the PayPal account and can do an annual fiscal report. I haven't been the best at doing that. We really need to be more clear and more transparent with everyone on how our finances are, what they are, and how they're, what they're going towards. So that's a really important role, the treasurer role. And as I think my hope in finding our next leader is someone who clearly, clearly a lot of us have vision and passion for our field. I think what I have learned in my last 4 years is that in order for us to kind of organize, to have a more strong front and strong and unified front as an organization, and to be, frankly, just to be able to do more stuff, and to do more stuff more consistently and deeply. Somebody who has like real administrative bent and a sort of highly organized way about going about things, and keeping other people's efforts organized. That's not my strong suit, and it's especially hard in this group because we're all spread out. So I'd really like to see if we can find someone who not only has vision and all these other things, but who can kind of organize our efforts as well. Let's see. So officer elections, that'll come up a little later in the year, usually like in December. I'd also like to get to organizing around some of our larger efforts committees. So, Tom, you're talking about some of these recordings and things like that. Suzanne has been heading up a large project of archiving and, these kinds of things within the guild. And I know Suzanne has had a really difficult year with several really tragic losses in her family, including her partner. So it's been a really challenging year for Suzanne, and I really want to, besides just on a personal level, see if we can, in a really practical way, help her out with that effort. She's got what I understand, a large collection of materials, and I'd like to see if we can bring people around her to help get that project finished. Of really getting our materials digitized and available to the membership, so that we can make use of it. So that's just one example of a committee that we really need to get active on, and that's the archiving. But there are several others. I'll be sending out messages on the listserv about this. Something that's a kind of a personal interest of mine, but I think will be really interesting. I can't. Was it Greg Woodsby? I think was the one who at some point posted a question of, should we all be content creators? and in a sense, I think that question is kind of around the periphery of what we're talking about. It's one of the aspects of what David was describing earlier, creating content, offline content to then be shared with students and faculty and these kinds of things. But I think that the Guild has a role here too. I think besides the supporting one another function, and then some of this, the sort of advocacy and research that Manju is doing by getting involved in other organizations, and I know other members are involved in other organizations. I actually think that one of the ways that we can probably start to have an impact and influence people is just being present, creating content on social media, but also on YouTube, and particularly an area that I'm really interested in is podcasting. So, Tom, you're talking about this interview with Marjorie that Suzanne did. Well, that sounds like it would, the archiving project, we got to get that material and we got to get it digitized if it's not, and then we got to get it presented to everyone, edited and presented, maybe as an episode of a podcast. I'd like to do some of these conversations with contemporary folks about, new directions and what directions we're headed in. I'd like to talk to some folks about their histories, you know what I mean? I'd like to interview Tigger and ask him about, his retirement a few years ago, and to reflect on his career. And I'd like to talk to Andy Hassenflug about his tech setup and how that relates to his aesthetic, as a dance musician, and what he does, and his composing and improvisation and these kind of things. Those are just a couple examples of topics that could be really cool topics for a podcast. And so I'm actually looking at our budget right now to figure and learning about some of the technical aspects of how we can remotely record a podcast, and potentially even think about. Andy says, I use machines instead of facility. Yeah, I feel that way sometimes too. If I surround myself with enough cool electronics, I don't have to be a good drummer today. Anyway, so I really, in my post-presidential time, really see myself heading up an effort to really ramp up our content side of things. That's how we'll elevate our visibility, but also I think that we will deliver value to people through inspiration and information and ideas and these kind of things. So anyway, that's just a personal note, but I really think that's an effort I'd like to help with. going forward. And the last thing on my agenda today was, as you know, Manji, you mentioned Bill Moulton several times. Bill died back in 2017. It's been over 3 years. And we had a little bit of a tribute website to him on the old website. We had a lovely exchange amongst ourselves on the listserv. I'd like to maybe do a little more fully fleshed out version of that, just a tribute to Bill on the website. And I think I'm going to be soliciting for comments on that. Any media that people have, photos, remembrances of Bill in the ways that he has influenced your life or inspired you. And then again, I think that could be folded into a podcast topic as well, to get people's oral histories of their experiences working with Bill, just to honor him a little bit more, and really in a complete way. I think we've done a little bit of that, but I'd like to put together a really nice remembrance of Bill and a celebration of him. Okay, check with SUNY Brockport. Tom tells me to check with SUNY Brockport for Bill's archives. Oh yeah, and Steve Rush at Ann Arbor.
Yeah, and NYU, I forgot to mention NYU would probably have some of Bill's stuff too.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tom. The last thing I want to mention is this is not on my agenda, but I think, and this is a huge topic in the United States. This summer has been a real it's been a real wake up and a real reckoning for a lot of folks about the nature of our relationship to one another with regard to race and that violence towards Black people is imbued it's in the ether. It's in the systems of our nation. It's in the culture of our nation, and it's in our organizations in ways that we may or may not be aware of. But I think it even ties into what we were talking about. David bringing up. Everybody's talking in their programs about how new forms of dance, new ways of thinking, all of these things are being present now in dance training and art and in our programs and our universities and everything. We need to be thinking about what that means for us. We need to be thinking about inviting in perspectives that are not ones we're used to, or that are not the original perspectives or the ones that come naturally to us. And so I guess this is just a way of kind of saying we need to be engaging with these ideas, with bringing in new people. As you look at our group, our group overall it skews a little bit male. But we have a lot of women, of course, involved in the field, and dance is a field that, at least in my experience, is dominated by women in teaching, or I won't say dominated by, but just numerically, there are more women teaching and in administration. And I think I would like for us to think as a group about basically making sure that we are having voices and giving platform and opening up for power, opportunities for power for women and people of color, and thinking about how we're going to make that happen going forward. And particularly as we come up to the elections and we start to think about nominating folks for leadership positions, thinking not just in terms of like gender or race, but folks who are coming from different experiences and different interests than we tend to have as a group. What does that mean? Just thinking about what that means to you and how we might do that. So that was a really long rant there. Any thoughts or feedback before we take off?
I would like to say something.
Yeah,
I'm,
please.
yeah, I mean, let's see if I can express myself well in English. Um, you know, since I started to work with dance, I discovered these things that you were speaking about, you know, the ritual, the symbiosis, the magic, no, of our profession. And I knew that I love it already. I was dancing also before, so I was dancing with pianists, and I could feel this magic, no. And then when I started, I was very very frustrated because I didn't find anything online or on books. I couldn't find anything, and I've been growing with this you know, with this frustration that I discover musicians, I discover amazing musicians collaborating with dance in many different ways, mostly in the ballet class, but also like with, you know, with performance, with contemporary dance, creating things, well, anything. And I was studying a lot. I did a master in Copenhagen. I've been researching a lot because I'm fascinated by this profession. And I think it's such a pity that there is no, almost nothing, you know, like. And now, for example, there is a new musician in our school, and she told me, like, you know, before coming here, I tried to find things on internet. She found, I did a research in 2014, so some people find me by this research, the research, which makes me very happy. It's just well, it's an introduction about what's the role of the pianist in the ballet class, and what do you do now, how you build your work. And, you know, for example, YouTube, you know, YouTube is such a huge platform. You can find anything in YouTube, anything. And when you search ballet accompaniment, dance and companies, collaborative musician, you don't find anything. And it's so frustrating. And I've been always thinking, like, I really want to do things online, and I really want to create content. So I have decided to start. So I'm going to start. Yes, because it's like, okay, if I don't start, who is going to start? And it takes time and energy, and it takes. I mean, it took me like a month to have a set, but hopefully I'm going to start soon, and I want to speak. I want to start speaking about the ballet class, like the pianist in ballet class, because it's something concrete. You know, it's impossible to to speak about it. But also I have a lot of ideas for future, like do interviews to pianists and show them playing a live. Because when you see a musician playing live in a ballet class, it's like everyone falls in love with this. Even people that they don't know anything about dance or music. Now I've been posting videos in Instagram since, I would say, like, I don't know, 4 years ago, like here and there. And I see a big reaction always, like people are, wow, so amazing your work, wow, working with dance, people that are not
Yeah,
connected with our profession.
yeah,
So I think we really need to show the world, like, and we have internet, which is pretty easy to show our work. Of course, we have to do it well, not just like, you know, bad sound, because it's another thing. The things that you find online, the sound is bad, the image is bad,
yeah.
and then gives us a bad image of what we do, and it's such a pity. So I'm working really on that, and I'm really like, so I'm happy that you mentioned the podcast. I was so happy when I discovered the ballet piano podcast, because they
Yeah,
have
right.
such a good quality. The visuals are amazing. You know, everything that they propose is clean and elegant, and
Yes.
so so create a podcast in the guild, and they're so I mean, you are also amazing. Like, you could have, you know, podcasts about so many topics, and even create YouTube videos. But this takes, well, always videos takes a lot of
More time.
um, yeah, tools, and, you know, edit, and it's a big thing to do videos. But I think we have to fight on that direction, like, because we are so inside of our world, you know, and
Yes.
it's such a pity that we don't show what we do, because when people see what we do, they're fascinated. So I think we have to fight on that direction. So I'm happy that
I agree.
you propose it.
Well, I agree, Mariana, and you have to understand that if you express enthusiasm for something or that you might have a skill, you're in danger of being asked to help with something. So, so I might be asking if in the coming months if you might be interested in being part of a committee like a media or content creation committee to maybe help with on a volunteer basis. But what I'm interested in the guild, we don't have a lot of resources as far as money, but we have a little bit. But possible ways that we could help if you might be willing or interested in in doing like one story, you know what I'm saying, like one video or something like that
Yeah.
next year or
Yeah.
something, you know.
For example, have you seen the documentary The Sacrosanct Accompanist?
Yeah.
I haven't. I saw the trailer. I haven't seen the movie because I don't know if it's possible to see it. That's amazing, you know. And people see it and it's like, wow, it's
Wow.
so beautiful. You discover the ritual,
Right.
and it's magic that we love, you know, and the dancers love, and it's what we have to fight for. Like that's important. It's like, we are not just playing music because it's practical and comfortable, which it is also, but it's like we create something special. And when you play good music, the dancers feel it, the teachers feel it, and then everything goes. So
Yeah.
we have to show to the world. So yes, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I'm really happy to help. I'm full of work. I'm full, and this YouTube thing
Sure.
is like, oh my god, it's
Sure.
so
Right.
difficult. You can't imagine how difficult it is. But yeah, and I'm also thinking to create an online course because when you want to learn how to play for ballet, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Karen McIver did this short course,
Hmm.
but I think it's pretty advanced what she does. Or I mean, like you need to be already like playing for dance. There is a course in Spanish uh, about how to, but I don't know anything else. I mean, the book of was the book of Henriette Cavalli, you know, some theses here and there, but it's not so much. It's not so much like easy to, you know, like you discover and it's easy. Yeah. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm trying, and I've been dreaming a lot, no, to go and to film a musician and to do a little interview and to show
Yeah.
how we do our work.
Yeah. That's well. Is that something? Well, I guess. Well, we should talk. We should talk. We don't need to have that entire discussion now. But I guess what I'm getting at is that I think if the guild could be helpful to you in any way in supporting that,
Yeah, and yeah, and the other way around. I'm, for example, thinking to do a video on YouTube just speaking about platforms, educations, things that are already online. So, and also what I want to do is to create the connection so everyone feels like, okay, I have a presence or I have a, yeah, because we are not so many people doing this. So it's kind of easy to connect. It's not easy because it's a lot of work, but
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. Well, we should talk. Maybe I'll. I'm really excited to hear that you're enthusiastic about this because that connecting aspect is what I think is the thing that this group is the best at least within the United States. To me, my experience with the Guild over the past 10 years or so has been that the major thing is that we connect with one another and support one another. That's it. I mean, that's like 80% of the value of the guild and the impact of the guild. And so if we can help you with that, or if you would be willing uh, to help out as a volunteer in some way to help us create content, or if it could be mutual, if it could be symbiotic for you, so you could, of course, own, have the material and use it and post it as you wish, but also that we would allow us to
mm,
post it as well. That would be great. But
yeah.
well, we'll talk. We'll talk and and uh, and get that rolling. We're so thank you, Mariana. Does anybody else have anything else to add? We're about 10 minutes out from 11, and oh yeah, actually before we go on, a thought occurred to me. I was talking about diversity and growing the diversity of the group, and particularly our and aiming towards having diversity within our leadership. I think this relates in a way to what we've been talking about, bringing in new music forms and new dance forms. Part of it is just getting people involved, because the leadership of this group comes from people who've been involved and who've been, you know, part of the group, and really just, I guess part of it is just like inviting people to become involved who may not think of themselves as a dance musician, who are not trained in the same way that I am or that we are, and yeah, I'm just encouraging that we kind of think along those lines, because I really would like to see. There's I don't know. There's so much awesome stuff going on, and there's so many cool ways that people approach things. It would be really great to hear from those folks and have them be involved. So how that happens exactly, I don't know, but let's try it. Let's
Hey, Jeff,
Instagram.
excuse me.
Manju, please.
Uh, I suddenly feel like I was back in boarding school going, excuse me, and raising my hand up so I could say something. Okay. So when are you proposing to have these elections
The
for
end of this
these
year. So like we
offices?
usually do it in December, I think. That's when we did it last. That's when we did it last.
So there's enough time for me to do the whole Russian thing of influencing people to vote
Yes,
for
exactly.
somebody. Okay, good. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I'll be sending out an email and asking for people to be thinking about uh, nominations, and if they would like to run, if they like to, uh, yeah.
Not that anybody's asking me, but from what I've seen in the last 30 years of being a member of IGMD, Jeff and you guys have done an amazing job. Bill, Owen, your team, Seth, you guys have, yeah. That's all I want to say for
Thank you,
now.
appreciate it. Yeah. Appreciate
And stay on.
it.
Sorry.
Well, I tell you what, I am, like I was saying earlier, I was realizing, the past 4 years, I've really realized that my interests and strengths kind of are a little bit outside of, I think, what the presidency really needs, which is somebody who is really good with the administrative part of things, and who can organize other efforts through like really consistent reminders and really consistent gatherings of committee meetings and these kind of things, where my interest right now is maybe a little bit more in line with Mariana's, which is content creation, storytelling, doing some more things that are inspirational, using sound and vision to yeah, I don't know, create interest, create a sense of belonging and of community, and increasing the knowledge and about our history, and yeah, that's kind of where my interests are at this moment. And I think someone who is able to kind of to have the discipline, frankly, to organize and convene regular committee meetings, and really start to like build the strength of our outreach, our connection with other organizations, like you're doing, Manju, with having substantive conversations about your research with people in other organizations. pressing the flesh, so to speak, and tickling the synapses of other people, so that there's a sense of our seriousness and everything. But part of my interest is the heart aspect of it and getting people excited about it through media. So that's what I'm aiming towards. And I think that there are plenty of folks who I can think of just off the top of my head who really need to be given a chance to grab the reins and excel. So, anything else from anybody else? I'm just going on at this point. So,
Well, I'm sorry I joined late, and I know you guys already talked about kind of COVID situations, everything, but I just want to share some positive
great.
light or silver lining within all of this. And it's been great hearing everyone share. It's easy to. I feel like I've been in survival mode, trying to get through everything and help others. But through all of this, and I'm having a lot of conversations talking to pianists and other musicians around the world, just seeing how they're doing, and it kind of gets really stressful after a while hearing everyone's in a really tough situation. But I've noticed I've had recently, maybe within the last month or so, many people reaching out wanting to learn, wanting to do our certificate program, our training. The Houston Ballet, are you still doing it? We're so sorry it's not, in person. And then they ask, well, do you guys have an online version? I'm like, we should. That would be awesome. If I have enough time to breathe, yeah, we should make that available. So I think, no, I just want to thank you, everyone, for doing what you're doing at this time. It's awesome. And yeah, that was a big thing for me recently, especially with how stressful life has been, and just to have people who are they're really excited, they're curious, they've had a glimpse of this, and and having them want to join and learn is kind of a new breath of fresh air that really helped me this last month. So it's out there. We have to keep going.
Yeah, man. Yeah, thanks for that, Bill. Yeah. And thanks, Manju, for mentioning everybody. I mean, folks have been really, really, really great and helpful. I mean, Bill always keeping my spirits up when we chat. And Owen, the same, and has been a huge help with the website effort. Owen manages the membership side of the website right now. So he's been, dealing with all kinds of things here and there. And so public shout out to you guys. Thanks for helping out with with everything. Okay, I think we're good, unless anybody wants to add anything else. It was really great to have a visitor from our member from Mariana from Sweden. It's great to see you. Nicholas who didn't who's listening in. He didn't make an appearance, but that's okay. He's welcome to come in and listen and check it out. And Nicholas, I think he said he's in Canada, up in Quebec, and that he was new to the guild. So I really appreciate you stopping in, Nicholas, and say hello on the listserv too, or not the listserv, sorry, the discussion forums on the website too. Just to say hello, it'd be great to get to know you a little bit better. Okay, everybody, you'll hear from me more through the discussion board about all these upcoming efforts. And thanks for joining in. We spent 2 hours, so it was a good long chat. Have a great Saturday.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
Jeff.
All right. Thanks.
Take care, everybody.
Jeff. We'll see ya.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone. Oh, and I'll put up a recording. I mean, you guys have already seen this, so you don't want to see the recording of it. But one thing about the recording is that I do put a link to the recording in the discussion, and in the discussion forum, and usually I post the text of the conversation, like the chat, in the description of the video. So if there's like links or anything that
Cool.
people wanted to see, you can check that in the YouTube video.
Awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
Jeff. Take care, bro.
Oh, hey, I also see a question here that Tom, you were asking for somebody's email. There is now a member directory on the website, so you can, when you log into the website as a member, in the main menu bar there's member directory, and you can look up people's whatever they've shared. All right, thanks guys.
Great, thank you.
Okay, bye bye.